Picture a tiny stone cottage on a windswept island off the coast of Scotland. It's 1949. The world is still nursing its wounds from 2 world wars. The churches on the Isle of Lewis, once thriving in worship, have grown cold. The pews where grandparents have wept and prayed and are now just empty of young faces. The Gaelic hymns, which used to boom through the sanctuary, are long since gone. Something's just missing. The fire's gone out. Inside that cottage sit 2 sisters. Peggy Smith is 84 years old and blind. Her sister Christine is 82 and all bent over from arthritis. She can barely stand. They can't make it to church anymore. They can't walk to neighbors hardly. They certainly can't organize a revival campaign, but the one thing they can do is pray. We often minimize prayer rather than maximize it. So these 2 sisters did. Twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, from 10 o'clock at night till 3 or 4 in the morning, these 2 women knelt and pleaded with God to do what only God could do. To rend the heavens, to come down, to make His presence so real that the entire island would know that the living God was among them. Now the Hebrew word for rem in Isaiah 64:1 means to violently tear apart, not gently open a door, the same word used when someone would rip their garments in repentance. Peggy and Christine weren't asking God to nudge things along. They were asking Him to rip the sky in two and come down like fire. One night God spoke to Peggy through Isaiah 44:3. I will pour water on the thirsty land and streams on the dry ground. And right there in the dark, in that little room, the smell of peat fire and wool, she saw a vision. Her church, the one she could no longer attend, was packed wall to wall with young people. And a preacher she had never seen stood in the pulpit. She didn't file the vision away. She sent for her minister and said, "Get your leaders together. God is getting ready to do something." So 7 men, deacons and elders, began meeting in a barn. No heat, Scottish winter. 10 at night until the late hours of the morning. They prayed for months, and nothing happened. Then one cold December night, a young deacon stood up, opened his Bible to Psalm 24, and asked a question that split the room wide open. He said, "God, are my hands clean? Is my heart pure?" He wasn't pointing fingers at anyone else. He wasn't really looking around. He was looking at himself and asking God to examine him, and the dam broke. When evangelist Duncan Campbell arrived to preach at the Barras Church, the first service was solid but unremarkable. Afterwards, he joined an all-night prayer meeting, and around 3 in the morning, God showed up. Men fell on their faces. Some lay prostrate, unable to speak. They left the cottage at 3 a.m. and found people outside seeking God along the country roads. Men were on their faces crying out for mercy. Nobody had called them. Nobody had knocked on their door. The Spirit of God had awakened them out of their beds and driven them out into the cold Scottish night to find the God they'd been running from. By morning, the church was packed. Buses arrived from all over the island. Nobody could explain who told them to come. They just knew. Here's the part that really gets me. 75% of the people who came to know Christ during the Hebrides revival were saved before they ever walked into church. God was doing the evangelism. God was doing the convicting. God was everywhere. Drinking houses closed, courts went idle, there were no cases to try, old debts were repaid, people who hadn't spoken in years were reconciled, and after 2.5 years, the backsliding rate was almost zero. Duncan Campbell said it best. You can make a community crusade conscious, but only God can make a community God conscious. Friend, here's what I want to carry with you today. Peggy Smith was blind. Christine Smith could barely stand. They had no platform, no podcast, no publishing deal, no followers. All they had was a cottage, a prayer, and a God who kept His promises. And that was enough. The same God who tore open the sky over the Isle of Lewis is listening to you and I right now. He's not a reluctant God. He's a covenant-keeping God who's looking for clean hands and pure hearts, for people who will not give up, for a generation that will cry out, "Rend the heavens, Lord, come down." So today, before you ask God to move out there, let him search in here. Ask that young deacon's question: God, are my hands clean? Is my heart pure? Because revival doesn't start with a program. It starts with a whisper and a prayer. And it starts with you and with me. And I promise you this, he will show up. He always does. God bless you. Have a great day.